Hello everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to be doing a very basic, simplified, and beginner-friendly protection spell. And this is going to be with herbs that are straight out of the kitchen. It's going to be very simple kitchen witchery with a baneful twist to it because I wanted to make it as simple as possible. Now, this is going to be a protection jar, and this is not necessarily a ward. Now, they can be categorized as wards because the terminology of wards is a little bit watered down at this point, but there is a difference between protection spells and wards. Wards are to ward things off, they're to keep things from hitting you. Baneful protection kind of does the same thing, except what these things do is it gives them a repercussion. It's some kind of boundary with a repercussion. Versus wards, they typically just deflect the casting or the harmful intention, and they don't necessarily do anything about it. That's why baneful wards are a whole nother category. So when it comes to these guys, these herbs that we're going to be working with, I'm just going to show you everything at once before we get started. We're going to be using cloves. You can be using ground cloves, you can be using whole cloves, and we'll get to the correspondences as we're adding them in. We're going to be using some crushed red pepper, which I'm sure you've seen all over Witch Talk. And then we are going to be using some garlic salt. Now, of course, you can use just garlic, but garlic and salt together, perfect for a protection spell without it being a baneful one. Cinnamon, sage, and then for the rest of it, which aren't herbs, we have some old used nails. We have 3 of them. We have some red yarn or rope. Of course, the bottle. Our tag lock and a sigil. And that is, and then of course our black candle for protection. So now the first thing I did with this, now this is something that you can leave out if you want, but I did end up cleansing this. When I do my baneful protections, I like to cleanse the bottle. Now with baneful workings in general, you don't necessarily have to because people purposely incorporate that energy. I like to do it when it's a protection, but it's more of an intuitive thing rather than like something that I'm teaching to you, and I want to make that clear that that's more of just a personal gnosis thing. So I did, of course, go ahead and do that. Now, if you are like kind of on the fence between that, you can just use the sigil that you plan on using. If it's a baneful protection sigil, you can use that, roll it up into a little scroll, and burn it and cleanse it that way, because then you're also inviting the energy in. Now, the first one that we're going to be adding is going to be our tag lock. Okay, now we have our tag lock right here. I also like when I enter the information. This one is not for me, by the way, just as a clarification. This one is not for me, but I'm teaching you guys how to do it on yourselves. But each time I add a tag lock and it's for something good, I like to add a pentacle. And if it's for someone that I don't want to help, then I add typically the symbol of baneful, which is a head and crossbones. So this tag lock, you would either want to fold up towards you, or if you're sending this for someone else, then you want to fold it or roll it away from you. I like to roll these. Personally, I like them to be cute little scrolls, but you can do whatever. So of course I'm doing that, like so. And then we have our Baneful Protection sigil. Now this sigil I already have posted on the Patreon, so you can go ahead and check that out, but it's available to all tiers. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll up the tag lock inside of the paper with the Baneful sigil. And that's just kind of to coat our energy or the target's energy with that Baneful protective, energy environment. And then I'm going to go ahead and take some of our red string and wrap it and tie it off. Now, the reason why I'm using red for this working, I'm going to be using it, of course, for this, and then also for the outside of the jar when I bind that. And the reason why I'm using red is because it symbolizes strength. You can use it in any spell, red rope, to strengthen the spell in general, but it's also for aggressiveness and assertiveness, rage, and all of those types of things. So it's perfect for this working. We have this, and we're going to go ahead and add this in. Next, because I want to start by adding those protective properties first, you want to have that blanket of protection. Now, there are a lot of herbs, of course, that you could substitute with these things that are more difficult or more powerful or complicated or however you want to put it. But like I said, this is just going to be one out of kitchen herbs. This is a kitchen curse, if you will. So these guys, I will be posting a more complicated one very soon, of course, within this month. So I'm going to be first adding the sage, and I'm going to add it into my hand first because this stuff's kind of hard to put in there. And then add into this. Now, this is also optional as well, but an important part for baneful workings, or baneful protection workings, is to make sure that you coat that working energetically with the protection. So you can add all of your protection herbs in first, or you can connect to the protection qualities of each herb that you add individually. But I'm going to be doing it right after I add all of the ones for protection first, which the next being garlic salt. My birds are mad at me because it's late at night and they're like, go to bed. So the salt can be used to ward off. It also is used for protection, cleansing, and then of course there's the garlic, and that is also used for protection and cleansing, and it can be used negatively, banefully, for causing headaches and nausea, but we're not going to be using it for that today. It's just going to be purely for the protective properties. Okay, I was trying to put the wrong lid on the wrong container. Okay, we now have our protective properties, okay? Or the only ones that we're going to be adding. So really quickly, what I'm going to be doing, and you can either do this with a wand or just your finger, is you can draw a symbol of protection. That can be a cross. It can also be a pentacle. Whatever symbol of protection that you want it to be, go ahead and just draw it over it. I like to do it 3 times because the number 3 represents security, represents protection, it also represents solid and rapid manifestation. Then you're going to go ahead and draw a clockwise spiral inwards just to draw that energy in, and then focus this energy into it. You can picture any kind of color that represents protection, which can be almost any of them depending on what type of protection you're wanting. Red can represent protection of the body. It can also represent spiritual protection, as does blue. Blue can also represent protection of health. Black can represent general protection, spiritual protection. White, general protection. All of those types of things. You want to channel that protection in there. Really connect to it and allow that energy to soak into your tag block, your energy signature. Okay. Now, another thing that I would like to make clear is when you're doing any kind of baneful working, even if it's baneful protection, you want to have your protection set. Okay, so for instance, I have two different white candles right here, and they are for purity and for protection. One of them, I have river water on it to enhance that purification and cleansing process, and another one, I have rosemary oil doused on it, as well as rose oil for protection. And then I also am wearing a protection oil myself and a necklace that is enchanted with protection. No, you do not need to go that far out. You can literally just put on a protection oil or light a black candle or a white candle, and that will be more than enough for you. But, of course, rather be safe than sorry. Next thing we're going to be doing is adding one more property, which yes, you could have incorporated in the protection. I like to separate it, and that's the cloves. And that is because this has the spiritual significance or metaphysical properties of domination and control. So the whole point of the reason why someone would cast over you is to take away control in some aspect, whether it's controlling the fate of your current life, meaning luck, bad luck, good luck, or they're trying to cast on love spells on you, or anything like that. This is to take this power back after you've already established your protections, just as an extra layer. And of course, you just want to focus that in. And just a couple more. Just have a feeling that this person will need it. And then we're going to be adding our more baneful ones. And I like to add the herbs in first. Of course, you do not have to do that. You don't have to do everything in order. Like I said, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. We're going to be adding the cinnamon. Now, this could have been used as a protective herb. It has protections. It's protection over health, protection spiritually. It can also be used for spiritual connections. That being said, this can also be used to cause severe headaches. It can also be used to cause internal pain, and it can also be used to cause burning sensations on the skin, and all of that fun stuff. Cinnamon is very aggressive. If you have cinnamon essential oil, it's even more worse because it's highly concentrated. I do have cinnamon oil, but for the sake of this video, of course, we're just using the cinnamon. Now, you know the whole thing about blowing cinnamon into the front of your door or window at the first of the month? Well, you can also do the same thing while focusing on a bad quality of cinnamon. You just want to hold the cinnamon, charge it, amplify that, and then blow it in to the spell for pain, bad luck, headaches, all of that stuff. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Just dump some of it in. And then we're just going to really hold that cinnamon, connect to both of them. And invite in that energy. And then we want to invite it into our protection spell. There we are. Okay. Next up, we're going to add the chili flakes, burning sensations, physical pain. I hope you see a theme. We're going to be adding this guy. It also can be used to cause anger. That's one I forgot to add with cinnamon, is confusion. This guy can add a lot of confusion. Anger also aids in confusion because, let me think clearly. Now I'm using this for the physical pain and for the anger mostly. I want this to backlash with unhappiness. And I want it to fucking hurt. And you'll notice that as time goes on, when you're doing baneful workings, it's going to get easier to channel specific energy. If you're having a problem channeling a feeling or sensation, picture a specific color that has the same metaphysical properties, and it will get you closer to it. Okay. That is all of the herbs. Like I said, that was very simple. You can add a lot more to it. Typically, I would, but this is more than enough for you, especially if you are a beginner, okay? So now we're going to be adding these guys, the nails. Now, these nails specifically, they came out of the bottom trim in a bathroom that had flooded. So I actually had physically cleaned them off, which is the only way I'm willing to touch them. I had washed them and soaked them in soap and all this shit. But energetically, they still have the properties. And of course, if you wanted to be more gross, you could have done that. But I have OCD, so I did not want to. That is just one thing I'm not going to play with, is septic. So as I'm sitting here holding the nails, whatever, I'm such a hypocrite. So anyways, stagnation for the septic qualities. When it comes to the actual nails themselves, it's bad luck, physical pain, all of that fun stuff. So right now I'm actually holding them very tightly. I don't know if you can see, but my fingers are like, turning white, because I'm trying to force a lot of physical energy into these. I want to really charge them with a lot of pain, a lot of frustration, and a lot of tension. Okay. Now, if I had them, now I have certain bugs and stuff, but I don't want to use them for this particular working because they're a little bit more intense than what I have. Like, I have maggots and stuff right now. Don't want to use that. I personally wouldn't recommend using like stink bugs or anything that's going to have a really bad smell for that when it comes to using your tag lock as well. Only, and this is still a personal gnosis, only because I feel that it counteracts the glamour magics that you might do. Stink bugs tend to bring out the worst in people. Just those personal things, but still, that's just a personal gnosis. You can still do that if you want. That's just, We're going to go ahead and close this now, and we're going to be binding it. Now, if you wanted to get really fancy, there's a chant I'm going to be using that actually comes with the sigil that I posted on Patreon. I'm going to be posting the chant itself in my more complicated version of this spell. You can always go there if you are part of the Bleeding Mirror tier, or of course the Rotten Willow. But you do not have to chant over this one. This one is pretty much like, hey, you cross my boundaries, I'm gonna fuck your life up. I'm gonna fuck up your back pain. And all of that shit. So now we're just binding it off. Sealing it with strength. We're sealing it with assertiveness. And also aggressiveness. Because I said it's painful. And I'm going to tie it up one more time because I did not add as much string as I would have liked. But yeah, so when it comes to baneful workings or baneful protection, always make sure that you still have protection. Yes, it's a protection spell, but you still have to protect yourself from the bad properties of it when doing this working. This, of course, is not going to ruin someone's life because it is pretty simple, but it is a very good start, and it is always recommended that you start somewhere. You can find literally all of these ingredients, every single one of them, including the jars, at Dollar Tree. So go ahead and go to your friendly local $1.25 store and do that. I mean, that's where I got most of my products for the longest while and still do. So, I mean, for a lot of them, especially my candles and stuff, which I will be posting a Baneful protection candle, which will also be fairly simple, just with more fancy ingredients, but less ingredients, ironically. And that will be getting posted to my TikTok, but I will also post it, of course, here on Patreon through the link. It'll be much more simple than this. It'll basically just be hawthorn and a red candle, and a red candle in glass, and a Baneful sigil. So, and like some red string. So stay tuned for that, especially if you can't do, if you can't store a lot of spell bottles. I totally get it, because it's just not doable. That's why candle magic's a thing, so you don't have to store shit. So anyways, here is the rest of this guy. Very nicely bound up. And actually, once I'm done sealing it, I'm going to be adding a little charm to the end, and probably another rusty nail. Some other good beginner-friendly Baneful items. Beginner-friendly isn't a good word for Baneful workings, because technically no workings for Baneful stuff are beginner-friendly if you're going off of mainstream dialogue when it comes to Baneful practices. That being said, some easier things to get a hold of are going to be things like broken glass, rust, brick dust by breaking bricks and shaving down the dust, rusty nails, stink bugs, dead bugs in general. All of these things you can find literally in your backyard, on the side of the road. Walk down the block, go to your, friendly local, maybe not friendly in this world, but local park, all of these things. The amazing thing, the beautiful thing about Baneful magic is that it's way more accessible. Witchcraft in general, absolutely, but the Baneful stuff, a lot of it, it's way more expensive and so much more of a hassle to buy online if you didn't just find it in person. Go get some roadkill, pick up some maggots and add it in, all of that stuff. Be resourceful. Make sure that you are actually looking out and around. Dead flies, if you have those in your apartment, use them. If there's spiders, those are amazing for protection. They're even more amazing for Baneful protection, and gorgeous for destruction curses and all of that stuff. So the last step for this guy is I'm going to be using my black candle. Oops, hold on. I'm going to be using my black candle for the final sealant and protection, and I'll let it burn on top of this guy. Just like this. And I'll let him burn down and seal it. Now, one thing to take note of, especially if you're using any kind of material that's glass, especially thin glass, is when it does get to the bottom, you do want to blow it out. And the reason why is because when it gets to the metal tray and it's just burning off of that, it will crack the edges that the lid is on, and it's just not safe. So if you don't want to have to blow it out to stop the spell, just hold the candle over it. That way you can just drip candle wax onto it. But I'm going to go ahead and let this burn out, on its own. Not burn out on its own. I literally just disclosed why I wouldn't do that. And sometimes they do burn out on their own and they don't get to the very bottom, but sometimes you do have to blow them out. No, that will not make the spell less effective. You're stopping your spell bottle from exploding inside your house and shredding your face. But I'm going to let that guy burn all the way down and seal himself. There's nothing else to watch, but when you feel that people are really testing your nerves and all of that stuff, then of course just go over to it, shake it, Sometimes leave it in the sun, leave it in the darkness for all different reasons and intentions. And if you need a jump boost on it, maybe go check out my way more complicated one and cherry pick from that. But thank you guys so much for joining. I hope that you guys enjoyed. If you have any questions regarding being full protection, feel free to leave them in a comment down below. Blessed be, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.